Here's something nobody ever told you. Before war, before money, before religion had a name, ancient humans were laughing. They were playing music, getting drunk, drawing pictures of things that made them feel something. And that should terrify you. Not because it's dark, because it means they were exactly like you. And if they were exactly like you, then you have to ask, what happened to them? We talk about ancient humans like they were a different species. Primitive, focused on survival, scratching the dirt just to make it to morning. But archaeologists keep finding things that shatter that story. Bone flutes carved 40,000 years ago. Not weapons. Not tools for hunting. Flutes. Someone, 40,000 years in the past, sat down and made something whose only purpose was to be beautiful. Let that sink in for a moment. When you imagine your earliest ancestors, you probably see them crouched in fear, running from predators, hoarding food, barely surviving. But the evidence says something else entirely. The evidence says they were playing. In ancient Mesopotamia, one of the earliest civilizations we know of, archaeologists found game boards. The royal game of is over 4,500 years old. It predates most recorded history, and it was a competitive strategy game. People sat across from each other, strangers, enemies, maybe lovers, and played for the joy of winning. The exact same dopamine hit you get from beating someone online. Same emotion. Different millennium. But here's where it gets strange. We kept finding games everywhere. Egypt, India, China, ancient Mesoamerica, cultures that had no contact with each other independently invented dice, boards, and rules. That's not coincidence. That means play isn't something we learned. It's something we are. And once you understand that, the next discovery hits differently. Some of those ancient games weren't just for fun. They were tied to life and death. In certain Mesoamerican cultures, a ritual ball game played in massive stone courts could end in sacrifice. Scholars still debate exactly who was sacrificed. Think about that. An entire civilization built stadiums around a game connected to such enormous stakes. Crowds gathered. Spectators watched. We look at that and call it barbaric. But look at the crowds that fill arenas today. The way a stadium erupts during moments of violence. The way people slow down to stare at accidents. Maybe we didn't evolve past something dark in human entertainment. Maybe we just changed the packaging. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Ancient humans got bored. We know this because of what they did during their downtime. Some of the most famous cave paintings in history were likely created during long stretches between hunts. The caves of Lascaux in France took generations to fill. Artists returned to the same walls across hundreds of years. They painted animals, symbols, and scenes that mattered to them. They made something, and it lasted for thousands of years. Meanwhile, the thing you posted last week may already be buried beneath endless new content. That's not an insult. It's a question worth thinking about. The ancient Greeks had theater, and not the polite, respectable version we often imagine. Greek theater was emotionally intense. Heroes destroyed, gods humiliated, entire families crushed by fate. Audiences cried together. They experienced powerful emotions collectively. The philosopher Aristotle called this catharsis, the idea that watching fictional suffering could somehow cleanse real emotional pain. He believed tragedy was a form of medicine. And for more than 2,000 years, humans have continued proving him right. Every horror movie, every true crime documentary, every disaster story. We keep returning to darkness dressed as entertainment because something inside us needs to experience fear in a safe space. But over time, the line between safe and real became harder to see. Let's talk about drinking. Ancient Egyptians brewed beer constantly. It wasn't just an occasional luxury. It was part of wages, religion, and daily life. Workers who helped build the pyramids received beer rations. Some early visions of the afterlife even included an endless supply of it. Ancient China developed elaborate drinking rituals. Ancient Mesopotamia had taverns thousands of years ago. Humans discovered fermentation and almost immediately turned it into a social experience. Because intoxication was never only about the drink. It was about connection. It was about sitting beside another person, sharing a moment, and feeling the weight of existence become a little lighter. It was about laughter. The same thing people seek today when they gather with friends. The same thing ancient people sought when they carved drinking vessels from stone. Nothing has really changed. And that's where this stops being a history lesson. Because we've spent a long time telling ourselves that modern life is completely different from what came before. That we've evolved beyond the primitive. But ancient humans played games to feel control in a chaotic world. So do we. They told stories to make sense of death and suffering. So do we. They created art not because it was useful, but because life without beauty felt incomplete. So do we. Every streaming platform, every music app, every novel, every movie. It's all the same impulse that inspired someone to carve a flute from bone 40,000 years ago. The same need, the same curiosity, the same ache. We are not the end of a story about progress. We may simply be the latest version of the same human being who sat in a cave one evening, picked up a rock, and drew something on a wall. Not because it would survive, but because in that moment it felt like the only way to say, I was here and I felt something. But here's what keeps me up at night. Those ancient artists, musicians, and game players didn't know they were ancient. They believed they were modern. They believed they were living at the peak of civilization. They had no idea that thousands of years later, someone would uncover their creations, dust them off, and say, look, they were just like us. So I have to ask, what are you creating right now? What are you building, laughing at, grieving through, or leaving behind that someone thousands of years from now might discover? Will they hold it up and feel the same shock? They were just like us. Ancient humans didn't play because life was easy. They played because life was brutal. And play helped them stay human. They laughed in the dark. They made music at the edge of uncertainty. They painted animals, hands, and stars on cave walls, knowing those walls might outlast everything they loved. And now you know. Every time you lose yourself in a game, a song, or a story, you're not wasting time. You're participating in one of the oldest human traditions ever created. You're surviving the same way they did.